Hey, how are you doing today out in the beautiful, I guess, wait, where are we again? Devil's Den, yeah.
Devil's Den, yeah. Amazing.
So I want to kind of start off talking about some of the challenges in Zambia because, I've heard about so much this weekend.
It's roughly about 1.5 million people, 1.8 million people, and Western Zambia is the size of Arkansas. We have a new congregation in Northwest Arkansas. Amazing, amazing place.
Hey, how are you doing today out in the beautiful, I guess, wait, where are we again? Devil's Den, yeah.
Devil's Den, yeah. Amazing.
Can you start with letting people know who you are and what the organization that you started is?
Great. So I'm with a church called Hope Family Church. We have a new congregation in Northwest Arkansas. Amazing, amazing place. But we also have an organization called the Zambia Project, which focuses on incredible work in Western Zambia.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to kind of start off talking about some of the challenges in Zambia because, I've heard about so much this weekend and I've known for a while. My wife actually went to Zambia for 3 months and helped with the project.
Yeah.
But as I'm hearing more this weekend, I feel like there's so much more that people don't know about in other parts of the world that are happening that I don't think they could ignore.
Yeah.
And so can we start by having some of those conversations of what these things are? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Western Zambia is an amazing, amazing place. Incredible people. It's roughly about 1.5 million people, 1.8 million people, and Western Zambia is the size of Arkansas. That's a great way to see how big it is. Very, very rural, very remote, very unreached in many, many ways. And so there's many people that have never seen a vehicle before. Some of them have never seen lights before. Never been exposed to the outside world, but are also at the same time living in desperate poverty. Yeah.
Wow.
Poverty like most people in the Western world would have never experienced. Yes.
And are there nicer parts of Zambia?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Zambia is beautiful.
Okay.
And there's parts of Zambia that are very well developed, big cities, big shopping malls. But Western Zambia doesn't have any minerals. It's got no natural resources. The soil's very, very unproductive, so there's no commercial farms really. So it's just a whole lot of people that have, in our opinion, just been forgotten.
Yes. Let's lay down the foundation. Why does the Zambia Project exist?
Great question. Well, we absolutely believe that Jesus is the hope of the world. And there's many people, we started figuring out when I was younger, probably 22 years ago, I heard that there was these people in Western Zambia that had never heard about Jesus before. And I just thought, well, that can't be right,
Yes.
So I went up there and realized that, there's many, 23 different tribes. And back then, most of those tribes had never had any access to the gospel, never heard about Jesus before. And then connected to that, where there is spiritual poverty, there's also real poverty in other ways. And these people were very, very poor and thought, okay, well, let's give our lives to doing something about that.
And what are those different things that you do about that? Yeah,
so we plant churches. That's primarily what we do. We start churches in communities that have never, ever heard the gospel before. So by God's grace, I think at the moment we're at 278 churches that we've been able to start. Most of those amongst previously unreached communities, unreached villages. And then connected to that, we do Bible translations. So we've finished the New Testament in 5 previously unrecorded languages. And that's a mammoth task. If you've ever been involved in Bible translation, it's taken us 14 years, but it's been amazing to be able to do it. And the first one that we've proofread has actually gone to print. And next month, September, we're actually going to be launching it.
Wow.
Which is amazing. So that's, the New Testament. And part of that was actually forming alphabets. These languages had never been written down before, so we literally had to write a written language for them for the very first time.
Yes.
Which is complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and then connected to that, we do, we put water wells in. We look for the orphans and vulnerable children. Malnourishment is a massive, massive problem. It's huge. And so we have a specialized malnourishment center that looks after severely malnourished children to actually save their lives. And then we have a primary school and a high school. We do fish farming. We do entrepreneurship development. But everything is focused around the church.
So you guys were just meeting actually with Uverse, right? This week.
Version, yeah.
And you were, which for people who don't know, is like pretty much the #1 Bible app in the world, correct? Like when you go and you search just Bible, on the App Store, this is what pops up.
Yeah.
And so what were you guys, were you getting more languages ready, or were you just getting more content?
Quite amazing. They actually have funded our Bible translation project.
Wow.
And so we've been working with them as they've been funding a lot of the Bible translation. And so we were able to actually upload the first part of one of the translations up onto YouVersion, and we're working at getting all the other translations up onto YouVersion because it's really expensive to print Bibles. And so we're trying to see how we can actually, through smartphones and through other digital devices, actually make Bibles available in the towns where cell phones are available. And then also just developing content for Africa.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to put you on the hot seat a little bit here. And because first off, I want to say before I do that I am 100% about everything that you guys are doing. But there are some people who don't have the right mindset or perspective, who maybe don't come from the same background, some of the same beliefs. And so I want to ask some of those questions. So one of the things I know that you do, the first thing that you do when you go into a village, if you're going to if you have a connection and you want to plant there, you plant a church first before you do a well, before you do other resources that will help bring up the poverty level. Why do you think that's the answer to do first?
I think we've got to understand poverty. Poverty isn't always, let me take a step back. I think we take for granted our Judeo-Western worldview that has shaped America. It shaped the Western world. And we are largely prosperous individually because of a belief system that comes from the Word of God, that comes from the Bible. Now, whether people believe in God or not nowadays, the reality is their worldview, the way they look at the world, the way they look at finances, the way they look at the future, just even the whole idea of planning and being future-orientated is directly out of the Bible, and it's shaped the way that we approach life. And it's one of the things that has produced financial success. And then we also have to realize that people are poor, not because of a lack of opportunity, but often because they're poor in their mind and they're poor spiritually, they're poor in their heart. They have almost like a poverty mindset or a way of thinking that leads to poverty. And that is connected to Christ. That is connected to real spiritual poverty. And so we've just found time and time again that you can give money into people that are poor in their mind and poor in their heart, and it just goes into a bottomless pit. But when you deal with the root causes of real poverty, then it changes everything. And we've seen that in crazy examples of that so many times. One that comes to mind was this place called Fur. It's probably about 20 years ago. We went into this village, and I mean, they're really poor, like had nothing. Filthy village. Had never heard about Jesus before. And one of the people from the village had come to another one of the churches that were started and had heard about Christ, heard about the church, and they then had said, please, won't you come to my village as well? We also need this Jesus that you're talking about. And went to this village and just overwhelmed. I mean, this is the children, just everything, just really poor. It's difficult to describe it. You got to see it to believe it. And shared the gospel with them and just explained who God is, what he's done for us, the kingdom of darkness, kingdom of light, how when we accept Jesus, we go from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, and what that means for us, God's plan for us, that he's a loving God, and what it means to genuinely repent and follow him. And the entire village decided to give their life to Christ. I can remember them, never forget the Nduna, the headman. He's like, no, we all want to give our life to the Lord. And obviously it's through translation. So I said, no, you can't decide for everybody. Everybody's got to make an individual decision, So it's like, no, we all want to give our life to the Lord. So I'm like, no, it's an individual decision. You can't answer for your community. So you remember, never forget, he got up and went to every single person, you yes. And basically everybody, single person, they had collectively decided to serve the Lord. And gracious enough to lead them in a prayer of salvation. And they made a commitment to God. They invited Christ into their lives and into the community. And ours, we live probably about 18 hours drive from that community. And so we then went back, and I came back probably about 3 weeks later. And there's no roads there. So you're trying to drive through this forest, and I drove past this village, and I literally drove past it 3 or 4 times because I didn't recognize it. I thought, no, that can't be the same village. That can't be Fur. And because it had changed so dramatically. It was clean. They cleaned up the village. They had started to rebuild their houses out of mud, and it was just, the kids were clean. It was just like can this even be the same village?
Wow.
And the only difference was that Christ came in. And now we look forward maybe 20 years, and what has happened in that village is astronomical. I mean, nowadays you go there. I mean, they say if a village dog is fat, then the village is doing wealthy, and the dogs are fat. Like the dogs are fat, the kids are fat.
Yeah.
It's just the kids are living. The average life expectancy in Western Zambia in a rural community for a child, well, and put it like this, is like 60% of children die before they turn 5. So people just die, kids die because of poverty, but often just because of spiritual poverty as well. And now these kids in this village are living.
Yes.
And they're prosperous. They got big farms. They're planting fruit trees. It's just incredible.
Wow. So
when Christ comes in, it changes everything. And obviously, once that is established, then we'll go in and help with education. We'll help start schools. We'll do Bible translation. We'll do medical work and medical outreaches. We'll help with farming. We do all those things. But the first thing is Christ.
Yes.
Let me tell you another story also in a similar area, very close to that. Initially, when we first moved up there, we thought, okay, there's one particular area, they're very poor, especially during the dry season. So we got a whole lot of mango trees. I thought, okay, well, if we can plant mango trees, then at least they're going to have fruit before the harvest season comes in, and that'll sustain them during the most difficult months. So we got, I think, probably about 50 or 60 baby mango trees that we grew. And then we took them, we drove them all the way out there. It was big, difficult work for us. Cleared this area, planted these mango trees in this village. We thought, wow, if we can get 50 mango trees in this village, that's going to change their future. And planted them, got the community involved. They were all excited, didn't really know what mango trees were. And then I left, and I came back also 2-3 weeks later, and all the mango trees had been pulled out of the ground. They're all dead. I'm like, they're all dead. What's going on here? Like, why did you pull the mango trees out? What did you do? And they was like, no, like very sheepishly, they said, no, well, Paul, we love you. Like, okay, if you love me, why have you pulled the mango trees out? Don't you know how hard we worked to get these mango trees here? And they said, no, we love you. Okay, well, explain a little bit. What do you mean? And I found out that their belief system was, because they believe they believe in demons a lot and witchcraft, and they're very fear-based. And they believe that the person that plants a fruit tree will die before it produces its first fruit. And so they didn't want me to die, and so that's why they pulled out all the mango trees.
Whoa.
And that's a type of belief system that is there, that it's generational, and it creates generational poverty. And so you first got to deal with the belief system before you can actually start to introduce, almost be like creating fertile soil, before you can introduce farming, before you can introduce fruit trees, before you can introduce education. You got to get the soil healthy. And the soil of a person's heart is really made healthy when they accept Christ.
Wow. Seems like a lot of these things that you're talking about, I mean, except, well, maybe even poverty too, because I'm thinking about some of these things and I'm like, okay, how does this relate to my life here in America, where it's a lot more comfortable, poverty isn't as high. But when I hear you say some of these things about the poverty mindset and even poverty living, I'm like, yeah, we do see this, but not on this scale that you're talking about, right? So we talk about the poverty mindset. Everyone in Arkansas knows that person who just stays in their hometown. They never travel. If a big corporation like Walmart tries to come in, they say, no, we want our mom and pops to prosper. Those types of just small town thinking that stops growth within a community. And so my question to you is, what do you think that actually changes in the human mind when they see the idea of Jesus and accept him for the first time? How does that actually, what happens there?
Well, I think it's definitely spiritual. I think we try to go into life in our Western world where we think that everything is physical or mental, but that we do have a spiritual component. And when our spirits are not in a good place, when we're struggling with unforgiveness or whatever else is dominating our hearts, our spirits, and we're not clean and free, then it does permeate into the rest of our life. And when we accept Christ and we've experienced freedom, we experience his love. Like one of the things that the New Testament talks about, that when the Holy Spirit comes to live inside of us, that we have a revelation of his love. And we have a revelation that allows God to not only be a distant God, but we have this revelation that he becomes our dad. And we know that we're loved by God. And when we experience that, and it is supernatural, that we that by his Spirit we cry out, Father God, Daddy God, Abba Father. And that revelation gives me confidence to face my day. It gives me confidence to not fear the future, because I know that he's with me. And so my decision making is different. The way I respond to challenges, the way I respond to maybe somebody else not loving me the way that I want to be loved. Well, I'm loved, and I know that I'm loved because I've experienced his love. I've experienced his forgiveness. So just that permeates every part of who I am. And many people nowadays, they've had maybe bad relationships with their father, and nagging thoughts that their dad said this or didn't do this, and it messes us up. But when we experience God's love, especially as a father, that love of a father coming into our hearts, it changes us in ways that are difficult to describe, but it affects every other area of our life. That's the one side. The other side is part of our discipleship, and this is very, very important. I think this is maybe where sometimes our missionary efforts in the past haven't been effective, is we haven't taught all of what it means to serve God, and we have maybe taken pieces of scripture about forgiveness or about freedom, and just, okay, well, they gave their life to the Lord, so and we started a church, okay, they're good. But actually we have a responsibility to teach all of what God says. And a lot of what God says is described in the meta-narrative, the large overarching story of the Bible. And that's a story of, and it's a repeated story, and we see it almost then through every single story that is in the Bible. There's a story of, I'm in darkness, God calls me out of darkness into something better. It's future orientated. The call of Abraham is a classic example. He's in this place called Haran, which is this dry mountain, and God calls him and says, hey, leave where you are, and I will take you to a place. I have a future for you. And one of the most researched verses or Googled verses in the Bible is Jeremiah 29, verse 11, which says, I know the plans I have for you, the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. And that calls to something inside of us. And so God has a good future for us. And so we are future orientated. Well, if I follow God, if I do things well today, my tomorrow can be better. That thinking, that worldview comes from a revelation from God. And many people in the Western world still have that today, even though they might not believe in God. But that's unique to the Western world.
Yes.
And it's shaped by Christianity. It's shaped by a healthy understanding of the Bible, because it's what the Word of God teaches. And like an example is, like, obviously it's in our translation, you start to learn a lot about a culture when you're translating. You've got to find words. You've got to find equivalent words. And so when we started to translate the book of Acts, we came to the realization that a lot of these tribes, they don't have a word for the word future, and they don't have a word for the word plan. Now you've got to think about a culture that's never, ever needed a word for the word future and never needed a word for the word plan. Like, they've got a word for the word tomorrow, but nothing beyond tomorrow. But they've got a lot of words for past, for history, so they're very aggressive in their thinking. And so if you don't plan, well, we know if you don't plan, you plan to fail. We know that, But this is a culture that doesn't even have a word for the word plan.
Wow.
And so, like, with that would be, so when the translators were working this, basically they came with this way of trying to put 2 or 3 words together to describe the future that God's got for us. And they had to put a sentence together. They said, God's got a big tomorrow for you. And I love that. Like, hey, God's got a big tomorrow for you. Yes. And if you follow him, he'll take you from where you are into a big tomorrow.
Wow. That's really cool. So I'm curious about the reception, like how often people receive this information for the first time when you go into these different places. Yeah. Because, I mean, I think you've said this, but just for people who don't understand, you were going into the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And a lot of times to even get there, I mean, not a lot of times, it sounds like from where you've told me, to get there is a huge hurdle, a challenge. Yeah. You can't drive to these places. You're walking. It's difficult. Yeah. You're
camping, going in a 4x4, sometimes walking, crossing a river in a makoro or dagat, a canoe, and
Wow. So I'm curious of, some of the good moments where it's been very receptive. Yeah. So can you give me an example of that? And can you maybe even give me an example of when it very much so wasn't received well? Yeah.
I think there's always like moments where you're going in, and when you're presenting a truth, it's disruptive. Truth is disruptive. And there is a cost to accepting truth, because it means I've got to let go of maybe the lies that I've been believing, and also the lies that I've been telling. And so often, like where there's a witch doctor in an area and he's very powerful and he's getting money from the lies that he's telling, and people are in fear and they're in bondage because of their fear. And he's a big person because of that, And so sometimes there's a little bit of pushback from some of the witch doctors or some of the people that are very steeped in sin and they don't want to let go of it. But there's other been moments where people have encountered Christ like a witch doctor.
Can you break that down? I know because I know that we understand what that means, but for a long time I didn't really understand what that means. A witch doctor.
A witch doctor it's basically like Satanism with different words attached to it. So they would I would go into a village, one particular village I remember going into, and I asked them, do you know Jesus? And they're like, no, we don't know anybody by that name. Like nobody by that name has ever visited a village. Okay, and the next question, okay, do you know demons? Yes, no, we know demons. How many people have got demons? The entire village put up their hands. So they all know demons, but they've never met Christ or know anything about God. And so they live in a kingdom of darkness because that's all they know. And that kingdom of darkness is dominated by demons. And they live in fear of these demons. And almost everything that they're doing is trying to please these demons. They're trying to keep these demons happy. And they are convinced that their future is in the hands of the demons. And so they're trying to pay off the demons or wear charms from the witch doctor. And you go to the witch doctor, you give the witch doctor something and he'll give you a charm or a this or that to protect you from a demon or protect you from somebody that's jealous that's put a curse on you or something like that. So the witch doctors are the wealthiest people in the communities and they hold the most control.
Wow. So that sounds like the definition of worshiping Satan, right? Like
is that? That's pretty much what it is. Like they wouldn't call it that, but it is satanic. It's full on demons.
Wow.
In every way.
Okay, so continuing on your story, you said sometimes it's received, sometimes...
Yeah, so you're going to a village. I remember going to this one village and we led them to Christ. They burned all their witchcraft. It was amazing. It was like genuine. And a lot of people got, literally instantly healed from very weird diseases as they were burning all their witchcraft. The village changed overnight. Anyway, so I left and I came back and also quite remote. It's probably about 14 or 15 hours from where we were living and got back into this village and been away for about 3 months and came back in and the village had just grown and there were more people there and they're excited about God and just sharing testimonies about what God had done for them. And then there was this one man there was this Induna, this witch doctor, a guy called Benson, and he was the area witch doctor. So he's like in charge. He's got lots of witch doctors that work underneath him. So he's the area witch doctor. And he'd walked a day and a half to be there when we got there because he had some questions, So I'm like, okay, this guy's going to be upset. It's going to be a difficult conversation.
Yes.
And he came to me and he said, tell me, explain this power to me because this power is something that I don't know. This is way more powerful than anything I've ever experienced. Can you tell me about this power? So I told him about Jesus and who he is, explained repentance, explained righteousness, explained the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light and what the kingdom of light is. And Colossians says that God rescues us from the kingdom of darkness and brings us into the kingdom of light through redemption and through the forgiveness of our sins, and how if we leave our life of sin and we get forgiven by God, we literally go from under Satan's domain into God's domain and we get healed. And if you're in the kingdom of light, if you're in the kingdom of Jesus, you're blessed, And explain what repentance is. He's like, I want this. I need this. So he goes, do you know what this means? Do you know that this means you got to repent? You got to let go. You can't be the same person anymore. Explain what he would mean to do to let go of all of his charms and let go of his lifestyle and let go of his control. And he's like, no, I need this. I need this. I was like, okay. And I led him in a prayer. And then he told me where his village was. And he said, please, can you come to our village? And so about 3 weeks later, we eventually found his village. And I'll never forget, we were driving through the forest. And there's this big open area with this big pan, like a swampy area in the middle of this, of the forest. And these whole little huts, all around this pan. And as we drove into this big clearing where these huts were, I saw he came out and he saw me and he saw the vehicles and he started running from hut to hut shouting, hey, the people I told you about have come. The people I told you about have come. And we didn't know this, but when he had got back to the village, he got all of his witchcraft stuff, all of his skins and charms and bones, a big pile of it. And he'd called the entire village together. And these are his words. He says, everything I've been teaching you is a lie. I've met the truth, and his name is Jesus. And with that, he burnt all the charms.
Wow.
And to this day, I mean, he's still serving the Lord. Ben, he's an amazing man. So it's transformative, and there's an incredible village there that's grown. I think from that church, and that church is now planted probably about 30 or 40 other churches.
Wow. I think a lot of times in the world that we live in, especially in this part of the world, as far as the United States, we're in a Bible Belt. We kind of get tired of that church lingo, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm hearing a lot of things that you're saying, and it's like we hear this, right?
Yeah.
We hear light, darkness, but the question that I have for you is, when you say that it means a lot more to them because they actually knew what true darkness was, versus what we think of as darkness.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff you're describing, I'm like, these people were actually in the dark.
Yeah.
I mean, like
full on fear. Fear based.
I mean, and we something we may not.
You don't understand.
We wouldn't understand. We never even experienced. We couldn't begin to experience unless we went there.
Yeah. But like, let's take his village, for example, Ben's village. So Ben's a Mbakushu tribe. So Mbakushus, they believe that like alcohol is food. Like they equate beer. Like they make this homemade beer and they believe that that's food. And so they wean babies off their mother's milk onto beer.
Wow.
So every single person is an alcoholic. Like, I mean, you will literally see kids that are drunk, babies, they're drunk, and they've got fetal alcohol syndrome. They're all, many of them, like brain damage because and they think it's good for the baby because the babies aren't crying when they're drunk. So like, well, it's food, it's good for them. So I'm just giving you an example. So you can go and you can say alcohol's wrong, but if it's in their belief system, you first got to deal with the sin, you got to deal with righteousness, and then they get rid of the alcohol. And so now they all stop drinking alcohol, and there's no alcohol in the village anymore. It's like, wow, kids are actually growing up not alcoholics. It's amazing. So that's the one aspect. Another aspect was I had a scary experience. It affected me quite deeply. I was in another community and shared the gospel, shared the kingdom of darkness, shared the kingdom of light. They believe a lot, obviously, in curses and fear dominates their life, and a lot of their decisions are based on that. And we spoke about how when you give your life to Christ, the Bible tells us that Jesus was hung on a tree and he was cursed so that the curse was on him and that we're no longer cursed. And if God has said something is blessed, that can't be cursed. And how when we go from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, demons don't have any authority over us anymore. We're under a different domain. We're under a different king. And I shared this with this village, and this village was like amazed. Like, this is the best news ever. Like, can we even be free? Can we TNG? Is it even possible? Can we even be free? Can we even be free of the demons? And they gave their lives to the Lord. They burnt all their witchcraft. But this one particular woman was like really upset as the more I was explaining this. And that's a strange reaction. She's upset, and you can see she's huffing and puffing, and she's visibly upset, emotional. And she walked away, came back, and eventually I asked one of the other ladies who was with me, can you just go find out why she's so upset? What's going on? No. She came to me, she says, is it true? Is it true that if I become a Christian that I can't be cursed? So I'm like, yes, that's true. It's what the Word of God teaches us. Walked away and come back. So is it true that if we're Christians that demons can't affect us? I'm like, yes, that's true. That's what the Bible teaches us. Walked away, come back and said, then she's like, how long have you known this? Well, we've known this for a while. It's taken us, known it close to 2,000 years. And she's like upset. She said, why are you only telling us this now? And then I found out a little bit more that a lot of it is in Western Zambia, that they believe that if a child's top teeth come out before the bottom teeth when they're teething, that happens quite often with a lot of kids. Most normally it's the bottom teeth that come out first, but if the top teeth come out before the bottom teeth, then the belief is that child is cursed and will bring a curse on the village. And so that child's top teeth came out before the bottom teeth, and the village forced the mom to throw the baby in the bush and abandon their baby out of fear, because they were scared. They were convinced this baby was bringing a curse in the village. And that had happened 3 weeks before we got there. And so she was incredibly frustrated with us because we hadn't got there soon enough. And it just made me ask the question, like, good question. Why has it taken the Western church 2,000 years to take the village, to take this message that it is life and it is hope to people that are in desperate need of it? And I think it's because we largely live for ourselves and we get self-consumed with what's going on in our world. And we don't realize there's actually a whole world out there that are desperate for, that desperately need what we have.
Yes. So one of the things I want to transition to, because I mean, I think we've painted a good picture of what the need is.
Yeah.
I hope by now everyone can see that there is a need.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff you were talking about, even to talk about a little bit more actually, is that there are whole villages that use one bowl to cook.
Yeah. I mean, their poverty is real.
They use one water bottle to fetch water in the whole village.
Yeah.
About how many people would that be?
Yeah, maybe 40, 50 people, and they've got one bowl, one pot. That pot is so old that in order to cook their food, and it's just worn out on one side, so they literally will wear a hole into the side of the pot. And then they turn the pot on the other side and they cook on the last little bit of it. That's how they're cooking their food. It's just incredible poverty.
Yes.
It's difficult to describe.
Okay.
The poverty. You got to see it. I mean, I can try and describe it to you. It's nothing like you see anywhere.
So you guys, your operating is, you raise about $1 million a year just for operating costs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hearing that number and I'm like, and you're doing that much. How many people do you have working on this project over?
Yeah, probably have about 160 people that are full time.
Okay. And so you're doing that with $1 million a year. Mm. So my question is, that
includes doctors and teachers in the school and everything. Yeah.
How much do you actually think you would have to increase to make what you would say almost like, I don't like the term revival, but of some sort, like some type of massive, like you're able to reach places that you never thought it would be 10 years from now.
Yeah, I think if we could increase, it's taken us a long time to build a capacity, but I mean, if we double it, we double our impact. It's at the moment, there's two things that are needed in order for God's kingdom to advance. You need the right people, and obviously that's critical. You need the right people and the right leaders, and then you also need finances, and those two things are necessary and they need to go together. But God's been very, very good to us. We have incredible Zambian leaders, got a great pipeline of young leaders coming through, great church planners. And so, if we double our finances, we can double what we're doing.
Yes.
But because we've also built a lot of capacity into it, and a lot of the groundwork has been done, then, I think over the next, if we could have like extra $500,000 a year, going forth over the next, 10 to 15 years, we'll be able to continue to plant churches. At the moment, we're planting churches at anywhere between 17 and 26% a year on year. And our goal is to have a life-giving church, a church that really brings life and hope within walking distance of every person in Western Zambia.
Yes.
So that's really our goal. We want to have a life-giving church within walking distance of every person in Western Zambia. And a person is pretty prepared to walk probably about 4 miles to church.
Yes.
And that means we need roughly around 2,500 churches from our best guests. And in order for that to be a reality, we need to continue to grow at the percentage rate that we're currently growing at. And that would mean that we'd need an extra roughly $500,000 year on year going forward.
So you're saying church, but can you explain a little bit more? So I've been overseas and I understand a little bit. And one of the things that I found out when I went is that church is not what we consider to be church. It means something completely different to them. Yeah. We see church as something we do on a Sunday and maybe a Wednesday. But for them, it's the most important thing. Yeah. Sometimes in these villages, it's the only establishment they have. And so you'll see and you'll hear, like a lot of these villages, they don't only have church on Sunday, they have church every day. Yeah. And so can you explain more of the importance of a church to them?
I mean, it's good to meet on a Sunday, obviously. We absolutely do that. Most of our churches meet on a Sunday. But I think even in our English language, one of the things that the early church did when they translated the Bible, not the early church, but the church when we came out of the Dark Ages and they translated the Bible into English, they chose to not translate the word church. They actually brought another word in for this word, kereke. They brought this word in it's not an English word. It doesn't actually mean what the original language actually means. And the original word for church is this word ecclesia, which means the gathering, the assembly, the gathering. And so because of that, they were quite clever in the way that they did it, because they wanted to keep people focused on church as a building, as opposed to being church as a gathering or a people. And buildings are great and they're important, but they're there to facilitate the gathering. The building isn't the church. The gathering is the church.
Yes.
The people of God are the church. And when the people of God, when that becomes who we are and we join this tribe, we become this family. And we are a family that is on mission, where that's what the church is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the family of God that is on the mission of God. And when we are a family and we are on mission together as a family, that's when it really transforms us and it transforms the world that we're going into.
Yes. Some of the things that I'm thinking about that you were talking about before when we were sitting down last night around the campfire is you were saying that a lot of these cultures, like the body, it's not just a physical barrier with the language. It's your body, like reading your body movements.
Body
you
language.
can't talk with that. And so you were saying a lot of these cultures, it's actually disrespectful to look at another person.
Yeah,
so most of them, they sit with their heads down.
Yeah.
And so imagine for them, when you plant a church, they find Jesus for the first time. This is some of the first time that they're actually having conversations, looking people in the eyes, not afraid that they're offending them.
Yeah.
So you're not only, it's basically, it's not just like you're bringing religion in and it's just religion. It's a community. Like you're actually
everything.
changing a community.
You transform society. Let me give you an example. Like in some of the tribes, when a girl hits puberty, then she will stop talking to her dad, and dad will stop talking to her. Like she'll actually not going to have another conversation with the dad again. So much so that, like, if the mom's there, so let's say there's three of them, dad's here, mom's here, daughter's there. The dad will say to the mom, "Tell my daughter this."
Wow.
Tell my dad this. And there's like three people, and the dad will actually not have a conversation with his daughter again. And that's obviously, it affects, I mean, it affects kids, it affects girls. And we know that women need the love of a father. And if they don't feel loved by their father, they grow up insecure and looking for love from other male figures. We know that's a big deal, unless we get healing. And fortunately, we get God's love that comes and heals that. But that relationship between the father and the daughter is very, very important. And that, for example, within that society is non-existent. And so, of course, that messes up stuff. Even the relationship between a husband and a wife. We've got to also remind ourselves that Christianity elevates women considerably. It lifts women up. It's one of the. It brings men and women back onto a mutual relationship, where it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not a subservient relationship. And in societies that have never experienced Christ or don't know anything about the Bible, women they don't even talk to their husbands. Like, for example, a man will eat by himself and the woman will come in on her knees and bring the food to the husband, not even looking at him in his eyes.
Wow.
And obviously when we go and we want to disciple all of Christianity, and so we want to do life with them, and so the dads will never play with their kids. So I remember being there with my kids, and when my kids were small, I'd be playing with my kids, and all the men are looking at me like they're laughing at me because they've never seen a dad interact with their kids before. They just don't know what that looks like. They're laughing, Billy, like, you're playing with your kids. And I'm like, yeah. And then privately, one by one, they'd come to me afterwards and it's like, I want to do that. How do I do that? Because they've never they've never played with the kids before.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, because I think a lot of people, whether you believe in Jesus or not, I think that you could say that what you're saying is healthy, right? So I think majority of people in the world agree that the principles of Christianity and the principles of Jesus is 100% a net positive.
Love your neighbor, respect your neighbor, individual dignity, freedom of choice, freedom of choosing your future, honoring the individual, valuing people based on the fact that they're a person. Not I think, outside of Christianity, people are valued based on their contribution.
Yes.
But Christianity says that people are valued irrespective of their contribution. They're valuable because they're human, because Christ died for them, and a person's value is determined by the price somebody is willing to pay for somebody, and Christ was willing to pay for the grace to sinner with the price of his life. So that people are valuable to God, and when they're valuable to God, they need to be valuable to us. And that's Christian. And in societies that don't have that, they base people's value based on their contribution. And if that person is no longer able to contribute, then they no longer have value. Once again, I'll just use an example. In this one guy came to me one day and he was completely blind. He had been blind from a disease that they get on their eyes, and they get scar tissue. And he had been blind for a number of years. And he came to me desperate. He said, "Please, can you pray for me? I need healing." So I'm like, okay, I'll pray for you. And he says, yeah, because my family's decided to kill me. So I'm like, well, your family's decided to what? He says, yeah, because I'm a burden.
Whoa.
And they live in such desperate poverty. And this guy can't contribute. He doesn't have a future because he can't contribute. He's blind. So he's just a burden to them. So they decided to poison him. And he was desperate. He's like, pray for me. And I was like, okay, God, you got to do something, you know. And I prayed for him. I'd love to tell you I felt very spiritual in that moment. I didn't. I just felt really sorry for this man and just desperate for God to do something. And nothing happened straight away. But I went away, went back home, and I came back to where I was living and came back probably was about 2-3 weeks later. And I was putting up my tent in the middle of the night because I arrived there quite late. It was a long drive. And I arrived there and I'm putting up my tent in this village. And this man rocks up. I actually got a picture of it. I'll share it with you. And this man rocks up with a chicken. And he's like, I don't recognize you. He says, no, I'm the guy you prayed for. I was the guy that was blind. So I'm like, what? He says, yeah, he woke up 5 days later and could see perfectly.
Whoa.
Now God just healed him. Anyway, I took a picture. I'll share the picture with you. You can maybe share it. And I took the picture of him and it was on a camera and he could see him. And I showed a picture of himself to him. And he hadn't seen himself in like at least 5 years. And he looked at the picture. I'll never forget. He's like, I'm good looking. And it was amazing. Anyway, his family gave their lives to the Lord. They repented and reconciled. And it was just amazing.
So that guy, did he actually come to you kind of in that same posture that you just described? Because if he did, I'm imagining that when you prayed for him, he was actually, like, it sounded like he thought that something would actually happen.
Yeah, he was trusting God for
so it didn't seem like he was surprised by, like, the way you said, oh, yeah, God heal me. Yeah. It didn't seem like he was very surprised. Yeah. He was expecting that.
He was expecting that.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay, so we were talking about giving power back to women, and you think that Christianity is one of the ways that happens, especially overseas. So let's talk about Hope Art.
Yeah. So we have an amazing project actually started by my beautiful wife, Marinette. We were started to look after orphans, and we just got overwhelmed by the need. So we started this village that looks after orphans called the Village of Hope in Western Zambia, and we're fundraising for a lot of other things. So we're trying to fundraise for water wells and for Bible translation and for this and for that. And now, we've got to look after orphans. God, how are you going to, Lord, we need help. Like, where's this? My wife was just praying. She's like, God, just show us what we're going to do. How do we do this? And she just felt like God just gave her this word, art. She's like, art? She's not really arty as a person. She's like, okay, art. Asked one of her friends, like, hey, do you know anything arty that we can do? Maybe we can try to use to raise money. And the lady said, yeah, like maybe paper beads. Paper beads, what's that? Anyway, described it like getting paper, rolling them, and then making beads out of them. And so we tried that and just started Hope Art. And by God's grace, we've been able to raise a significant amount of money through Hope Art. So these women that are very, very impoverished, many of them would be taken as, sex slaves or child slaves when they're younger, or they're widows and they've got nothing and they're destitute. And we give them an opportunity to earn an income, and they teach them how to roll beads and make these beautiful, amazing products. And then they earn an income, but then 100% of the profits of that, when we sell them, then gets reinvested into looking after orphans and vulnerable children. And then no missionary gets a salary, so nobody's benefiting. Nobody in the Western world is benefiting from that. 100% of the profits goes back into.
What do those sell?
We sell like beautiful bracelets. They can do Hope. We can do branded bracelets. So if like there's a business that would like, branded items, or we can do anything. You can basically paper beads that you can put your branding on.
Okay.
So we've supplied like Rip Curl, which is like a surfing company. Like we've made Rip Curl stuff for them. We've got a contract with them in the past, or anything really.
Wow.
Companies wanted anything that's branded, we can do that.
Okay.
And then they make little critters for kids and just jewelry really that comes from these women that are making these incredible, incredible crafts.
Okay. Okay, so we have Hope Art, and then the overarching is the Zambia Project. Yeah. And now we have Hope Church.
Yeah.
What is Hope Church doing in America?
Great question. What is Hope Church doing in America? Hope Family Church. So it starts in the bush. Actually, it started in And one of the first churches that we started was that one in that very rural community that completely transformed for us. So that's where Hope Family Church started. And then from there, we then started a church in the town in Mongu, and that did in Western Zambia, the big town, and that did really, really well. And then about 10 years into that, my wife and I felt that we needed to go to South Africa and start Hope Family Church in South Africa to really build an engine room to reach people in South Africa, but just to carry, like, God was doing something very, very special in Zambia, and we're experiencing God in a very, like, an amazing way, and experiencing community and authenticity and life and freedom in an amazing way. And then we brought that and started that in South Africa, and it just seemed to resonate with people, even in the West. It's looking for authenticity, authenticity in worship, authenticity in leadership, authenticity in purpose. I was driving through Bentonville probably about 8 years ago, and I just felt God like quicken something in my heart that we at some point in time would start a church here. And then 2 years ago, we felt like, yes, now is the time. We needed to do this. An amazing couple, Matt and Savannah Mackey, they felt that God had called them to do this as well, and so they left Zambia. Mm-hmm. She's actually originally from
Van Buren, Arkansas,
and he's from Cape Town, South Africa, and they relocated here. And the church started in the beginning of this year, and it's going really well. Hope Family Church, Northwest Arkansas.
What's the hope with Hope Church? I didn't mean to do that. I really did. But what's the hope with Hope Church? Is it to build something here that obviously reaches the people in the community, but is the main emphasis? I mean, I guess every church main emphasis should be to give back, right? So is that the main purpose of coming?
Our mission statement. So it's hope. Hope is about future. I think it comes down to the God has got a great future for us. And so we believe that the main message of Christianity needs to be a message of hope. And then probably about a year ago, we actually realized that actually not just hope but we actually need to be a family.
Yes.
We need to be a family that brings hope. And I do think that families are under attack, and the whole idea of a family is under attack. And if there's a lot of people like myself, I came from a broken home, and I came into a church, and I found family in church. And the Bible says that, that God places the lonely in families. And I do think that the church is supposed to be the best family on the planet.
Yes.
Because it's God's family. And so that's one of the reasons why we said Hope Family. And then our mission statement is so others may live. We exist so others may live. And that's the reason why we exist as Hope Family. Yes, God does incredible miracles in us. He blesses us. He heals us. He restores us. He gives us great friendship. We have a lot of fun serving God. Amazing. But actually, we need to join him on his mission.
Yes.
We're not just a family that's being more and more blessed. We need to be a family that's on mission, on his mission.
Yeah. We've had a lot of fun with that this weekend. Yeah.
Had a lot of coffee.
Yeah, a lot of coffee. Yeah. I show up with coffee. I'm thinking I'm going to be the only guy. And like every guy pulls out like a brew coffee set, and we're just like
grinding coffee.
But what's so cool about it, it's the stories, right? Yeah, like it's not this. I think nowadays, like we do live in this culture that's very passive, right?
Yeah.
But all these guys from different backgrounds, I mean, even age differences. Some of these people have kids that are 18. Some of these people I have a 1-year-old. And we're all actually having real conversations about how life is.
About life.
Yeah, and we're laughing.
Purpose.
Brewing coffee. Brewing more coffee. Brewing more coffee.
Yeah.
Cooking burgers. Yeah.
Burgers, amazing.
But that's what it's supposed to be.
Totally. I think that's what a healthy family's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Healthy families eat together, they laugh together, and they're both supposed to do stuff together. They're supposed to take care of the family farm.
Yes.
What is the family? The farm. The family farm is his purpose, his mission.
Yes.
And so others may live. We need to be about other people, and we need to be about reaching people that are maybe not yet part of who we are, and bringing this message of hope and family to people that actually are in desperate need of it.
Yeah. I have 2 last questions for you. One, like I said a little bit closer up to the front of this podcast, is you guys operate with $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Can you actually explain what that is? Because I just don't think people understand. I know I still don't understand exactly.
We're very efficient.
Yeah. Lay out all the stuff, like the radio show, everything that you do.
So we have a radio station with two studios. We broadcast radio Hope FM in Western Zambia. We run a primary school and a high school with 780 kids in it. It's actually the top performing school in Western Zambia. We have a malnourished people that work with special needs children and with their families, because like we said before, every single person is valuable to God, and special needs children are very valuable to God. And so we work with special needs children and with their families and help their families and those kids. And so we do that, and we've got a team that actually does that, not just in Mongo, the main center where most of our work is based. We actually have teams that go out into these rural communities and find these special needs children and start working with their families and with them. And that's incredibly rewarding. And then we put water wells into communities as well that don't have access to clean and safe drinking water. We do entrepreneurship training and development. We also do Bible translation, which is a big deal. And then we have a clinic in the main place where we work, as well as we do mobile clinics. We do like mobile outreaches. So we'll take a team with doctors and literally go into a place that's never had access to a doctor before or medical care before, and set up this clinic, and they'll treat 300-400 patients a day.
Wow. Okay. One of the questions that I have.
We do all of that, yeah.
Yes.
One of the things, obviously all the churches. So we have 278 churches at the moment.
In the past 2 years, we've been seeing on social media a lot here that we're finding out that a lot of these charity organizations are not doing what we thought they were doing when you give, right?
Yeah,
so when you give your money, you're finding out that, it's not actually going to the need. I mean,
very
majority.
small percentage, yeah.
How can we trust that if someone gives that with hope that is actually going to go to where it's supposed, like where we think it's going?
The easiest thing is like we're open, come and see. If you really want to have a look, come and have a look. Come and see what we're doing. Or just come and see us. Come and get to know us. And I think that you get close to us, you'll see that we're the real deal.
Yeah.
And we've had big audits from big organizations that come and do things, and like a lot of organizations that come and they come and look at what we're doing, and they recommend us highly. They've never seen. It sounds like a big statement, but in sub-Saharan Africa, there's very few organizations. I'm not aware of any other organization that can do what we're doing with the amount that we spend.
Okay. So the last thing here that I want to do, and this is going to be really, really fun for me, maybe fun for you. It might be your first time doing this. I'm going to give you a dollar amount, and I'm going to give you a couple of them at a time. For each dollar amount I give you, tell me what that can actually do in Zambia.
Cool.
Okay, so $10.
I need to translate that in my head.
Yeah.
$10, that could feed a vulnerable child for a month.
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Wait, you said, say it one more time.
$10 feeds a vulnerable child for a month.
Okay. Okay, so we're used to subscription society. So we would think of that as, okay, we're going to give $10 a month. And that would be nothing to everyone here.
It can feed a child for a month.
So $10 multiplied by 12, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Sorry.
It's $120.
What can that do?
It can feed a child for a year.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay.
It can feed a child for a year.
Okay, so what can $500 do?
$500 would be $2,000.
And if you can, try to break it up a little bit too, of like some different needs that it can go to.
Yeah, like obviously medical care, that's substantial. Medicine it is expensive, but it can do a lot, $500 is what I know that like $2,000 can put a water well in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In a village.
So $2,000 can put a sustainable water well in a village.
Put a water well in a village that will give fresh water, clean water to about 100 people.
Wow.
For 7 years.
Okay.
So that one water, $2,000 will, and that'll change that community completely. So sometimes they got to walk for like 4 or 5 hours to go get water, and the water they're getting is dirty.
Yeah.
So you're changing a community, and they've got a water well.
So $2,000 is nothing for a business, especially when that's a tax write-off for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we are tax deductible, so we registered 501c3 and all that.
Okay. I'm gonna do you two more. $10,000.
$10,000. $10,000 is 200. I'm just kind of converting it to Zambian amount. $10,000 could run an area, so they could open up a new area to the gospel. Not the capital outlay. The capital outlay would be $40,000. No, sorry, like $25,000 would be the capital outlay to start a new area. But $10,000
What do you mean by that? Explain that. What do you bring into the area for that?
Yeah, in order in order to get an area, we need tents. So we got to have a team that go in, Zambian team that go in. So we need tents and equipment for them. They need cell phones, so we GPS track and coordinate like all of our churches, so we know where we are and the data capturing for that. And then we buy a second-hand Toyota Hilux with that amount as well as a GPS, and that sets that team up to function for 5 years. So second-hand Hilux and all the equipment that they need for 5 years for $25,000. And then the $10,000 for a year, $10,000, I'm converting in my head, $10,000 for a year, that would fund an area for a year. So that enables that team to function for a full year. That would include their salaries and...
How many people?
3.
Wow. Okay, last one, $100,000.
Oh, you could do a lot.
Yeah.
And
that's a tenth of your operating costs right now.
You can do a lot. And so, like, if you're opening up a new area to the gospel, these are people that have never had access to the gospel before, and you're literally opening up that area to the gospel. And then if we track that over a 5 to 6 year period, the first year we expect to start 2 churches. Second year that normally goes to like 3 and another 3 churches, and then the churches that we plant churches that plant churches that plant churches. So we get to 3 or 4th or 5th generation churches. And so by the end of like a 5 or 7 year period, we could quite comfortably have anywhere from between 60 to 80 churches, and that would equate to probably about 8,000 people.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a massive difference.
Yeah.
Money goes a long way.
Thank you so much for coming on. Can you let people know how they can give and where they can be a part of the project?
Well, to find out more about us, you can either come and visit us at our church here in Northwest Arkansas, Hope Family Church, or you just go online, the ZambiaProject.org.
Yes.
And I think you'll put a link in it. And
yes.
Just send us an email, get hold of us, and we'd love to see how we can partner. Especially if you want to, with Hope Art, you maybe want to get some branding or for a business or stock it, or we can personalize it for you. We can do whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.